Welcome to today's CE accredited webcast, 10 Ways AI Saves You 10 plus hours a week, sponsored by Slant. The program has been accepted for 1 hour of CE credit from the Investments and Wealth Institute only. I'm Tracy Longo, Washington editor and columnist at Financial Advisor magazine. Before we get started, there are just a few things I'd like to mention. Please note that the information and insight you get in this webcast are provided to you as an investment advisor representative and are not for public use. We encourage you to participate in the Q&A session at any time during the presentation by typing your question into the Q&A widget that appears on your console, then clicking submit. If you're interested in seeking additional resources, including today's full presentation, please click on the link in the resources widget that appears on your console. As a reminder, Financial Advisor magazine offers a variety of content, educational webcast presentations, and conferences on important topics relevant to you and your clients. For more, visit our website at fa-mag.com. Our speaker for today's CE accredited webcast, 10 Ways AI Saves You 10 plus hours a week, sponsored by Slant, is none other than Thomas Clausen. Thomas is the co-founder of Slant. Slant helps advisors automate critical workflows while building a more personal connection with leads, referrals, and clients. Since launching in April 2023, Slant has grown to work with more than 1,200 financial professionals. Prior to starting Slant, Thomas worked at 2 tech unicorns. He led collectibles marketing at Whatnot, and before that, led demand generation at Podium. Thomas studied economics at BYU and currently lives in Utah with his wife and 3 young daughters. When and if there is free time, Thomas enjoys playing ice hockey, making music, and exploring the mountains and national parks in Utah. And now let's kick off 10 Ways AI Saves You 10 plus hours a week. Handing it off to you, Thomas Clausen. Can you please introduce the audience to Slant and this important topic today?
Yeah, thank you so much. Very excited to be here. Great to see so many advisors here in the webinar. My goal is to really help you guys have some actionable items you can take to your teams to show them ways you can leverage AI and ways you can grow and learn. So happy to be here. I'll jump in a little bit about me. I'll have to make these a little more human than just jumping right into the nuts and bolts, but that's me. It's clearly an outdated picture on the left because now there's a third little girl in my life. So there's a new baby at my house, and that's my co-founder, Max, with his daughter. And then on the right is a press release recently about our team. We're 9 people. We work in person here in Lehi, Utah, and we're growing quickly every day. It's been fun. We started as a marketing automation tool, and as we continued to grow and learn what advisors needed, it became clear that that was a product that they needed, but kind of reimagining the CRM was the next job. So that's a little bit about me. I'll jump right into the objective. So I'll talk briefly at the beginning about why is AI such a big deal right now? Why is it such a massive opportunity for advisors? How is the job and landscape changing? Next would be AI agents. What are they? How do you use them? How do they get leveraged? We'll talk about compliance. We would have missed the mark if we didn't talk about how AI and compliance really talk to each other and why it matters and how to do things safely. And then we'll dive into the 10 practical use cases. So as you have questions during the presentation, please drop them in the chat. We'll be presenting for this first 50 minutes, and then we'll jump into all those questions. So please send them as you come into those questions. It'll be helpful to me, and I can see some of those and hopefully point you in the right direction. So we'll jump right now with why now. So I love to look at, hey, what are the next 10 years look like for this business? And we pulled quite a lot of data. We did a lot of research and found right now there's 41 million Americans preparing to retire in the next 10 years. So they have plans of retirement. There's 41 million of them, and 22 million of those people do not have an advisor. Quite a large number. And then a lot of people here serve the near retirees, and we can see how that works. And so 22 million people have no advisor and need it. And that's a lot of like the mass affluent, as they call it, are on that group. And then the 10-year, like what is happening in the next 10 years, the way to serve those 22 million people, right? We either going to need, McKinsey did a very big study on this. We were either going to need 100,000 new advisors to service all these people who really want advice, or every advisor needs to serve 78 more client households. Those are the two ways the math works out. Yeah, if you search just McKinsey advisor shortage, you can look at this. And so I think it's a very, very interesting spot to be as a company and thinking about, well, over the next 10 years, how do we help 22 million more people get advice? Our company's mission is to help 20 million Americans get advice from great advisors. We need to drastically improve productivity or get really good at recruiting. And so those are the two ways I would think about kind of what is shaping and happening in the business. And AI presents a very big opportunity, because what used to be less efficient, maybe it was difficult as an established firm to service a $200,000 client or a $500,000 client without finding profitability. But we found over time, hey, AI is going to really change this, and it's going to make our advisors more efficient. You'll be able to do more with less. And these 22 million Americans who need advice, we think they're going to be able to receive it. So I think that's just at a high level. There's this really big, there's $12 trillion out there of people who want advice and want to retire. We are so grateful that advisors want to help them, and we want to look at how to make that easier. So it's worth diving in. Is there some industry hype right now? Is this a lasting change, or is this something that's really gonna just be a flash in the pan? And so we looked through what have been the classic hype cycles for advisors, and are these things that are really lasting? Are they going to be here for a long time, or are these just flashes in the pan? So when the ETF came out, this is a headline from Investment News. Hey, these are the threat to mutual funds and to advisors' revenue. Watch out. There's now $17 trillion. There are plenty. There's a huge industry behind this. So did it have some fear to the industry? Yes. But overall, did it make a lasting change that helped people? Yes. Next is robo-advisors. Another headline. They want to plan your client's future. They're going to take over the world. And the reality, those are good businesses. Betterment helps a lot of people. There's a lot out there. Those are, I'm sure some of you have referred clients who maybe didn't need a minimum or weren't the right person for you. Like, hey, this is a good place to get started. And that is a lasting business. Next is crypto, right? Like, people thought, okay, is this the downfall of all the other things? No, now it's another asset class you all care about, you think about. It hasn't ruined anything. Direct indexing, obviously a very interesting one. There's a lot to debate. And then AI, the new headline right now, 4 in 10 advisors worry that AI is going to replace them. And then we learn, well, 70% of advisors are using AI. They want to use it more. And I think if you look at overall at the advice and financial advisor business, early on, you had the keys to the market. You were the people who got to say, hey, you want to trade or want to invest, you need to work through me. Then that became commoditized. And the next bit was, okay, well, we're the ones with the expertise who can make a plan. We have the insights on what the right planning tools are and how to set things up for retirement. I'm going to tell you about RMDs and all that. That was your main asset that you offered people. And then after that, that became, in ChatGPT, you can get a pretty good plan. So what's the next wave of this? I think relationship is going to matter more than ever. And that is going to be the critical part of your business, is maintaining amazing client relationships, obviously offering great service, helping people achieve their goals, but they want to work with a person. They trust you. You're the reason they're working with you. So I like to look at, I call it my forecast, but what in the industry is going to change? How will things be different? What will it look like? And so a couple things this next 10 years and even the next 3 or 4. First, advisor capacity will increase dramatically. The good advisors are going to adopt at a rapid pace and serve more clients better. And the ones who don't, I think, are going to offer worse service and not be there. The next will be, people are going to launch. When I made this, there was not a public one. There was one this week announced, very well funded, an AI advisor. And you can talk to it and ask it questions and ask it for a plan. And it is, an LLM bot that people can talk to. But that got a lot of press, a lot of industry excitement. People thought, okay, is this the beginning or the end? A lot of people don't know the answer. And so that forecast already has come to fruition. And then I really do think 20 million more Americans are going to get good advice in the next 10 years. I think they're going to look for advice from good sources and find it. Next is the mass affluent population will be the biggest group to start looking for advice and want to receive it, as they have more knowledge available to them with these AI tools. The next thing for them to do is really going to be, okay, well, now that I know X, Y, and Z thing, I have another question, or I need this help. And that's the group who's going to grow. There will be AI phone receptionists who are going to be answering the calls when your team is busy. And right now, a lot of people think, well, how am I showing up on Google? Or am I, if someone searches best advisor near me, am I showing up? And I think a bigger question a lot of you will be asking in the next few years is, when someone's in ChatGPT and says, who's the best advisor in Des Moines or Provo or San Francisco, and that's where your firm is, you're going to want to show up and you're going to worry about like ChatGPT search engine optimization. So I just want to kind of paint that picture for where I think the business is going, and overall lean into this vision of, well, if these 20 million people need advice, how's everyone here going to help service them? So with that, I'm happy to jump into agents. Please send any questions as they come on these things. So AI agents, what's an agent? It's a really good question to ask. An agent overall, I would say it's a tool that works in the background all the time, and it does really specific things for you. If you look at the bullet points you have in a job description, I found one here on the right from Shelby County Bank. It was just publicly available. The specific bullets of a job description are a really good way to think about agents. So an example one here, like in that job description, we have prepare and review new account paperwork. There could be a new paperwork agent that fills in the fields from your CRM and does it. Or interact with clients over the phone, an agent that answers the phone, maintaining a calendar. All these things are potential agents. So some there, like scheduling meetings. You could have an agent do that. Take notes, draft a plan, manage an inbox. These are all agents that some people are using, some are not. But I think it's a really good way to think about how agents work today and what they do. So with that in mind, I love to learn from great business thinkers. And one of those is Clayton Christensen. He talks a lot about doing really specific jobs and why we hire products and jobs. And I'm going to play a clip from him briefly to talk about when we hire a product, what are we hiring it to do? It's more relevant than ever with agents. And I think it's a good learning and a fun story. So I'll play that next.
The most helpful way we've thought of it so far is that we actually hire products to do things for us. And understanding what job we have to do in our lives for which we would hire a product is really the key to cracking this problem of motivating customers to buy what we're offering. So I wanted just to tell you a story about a project we did for one of the big fast food restaurants. They were trying to goose up the sales of their milkshakes. They had just studied this problem up the gazoo. They brought in customers who fit the profile of the quintessential milkshake consumer. And they'd give them samples and ask, could you tell us how we can improve our milkshakes so you'd buy more of them? Do you want it chocolatey or cheaper, chunky or chewier? They get very clear feedback. They would then improve the milkshake on those dimensions, and it had no impact on sales or profits whatsoever. So one of our colleagues went in with a different question on his mind, and that was, I wonder what job arises in people's lives that cause them to come to this restaurant to hire a milkshake. So we stood in a restaurant for 18 hours one day and just took very careful data. What time did they buy these milkshakes? What were they wearing? Were they alone? Did they buy other food with it? Did they eat it in the restaurant or drive off with it? It turned out that nearly half of the milkshakes were sold before 8 o'clock in the morning. The people who bought them were always alone. It was the only thing they bought, and they all got in the car and drove off with it. So to figure out what job they were trying to hire it to do, we came back the next day and stood outside the restaurant so we could confront these folks as they left, milkshake in hand. And in language that they could understand, we essentially asked, excuse me, please, but I got to sort this puzzle out. What job were you trying to do for yourself that caused you to come here and hire that milkshake? And they'd struggle to answer, so we'd then help them by asking other questions like, well, think about the last time you were in the same situation, needing to get the same job done, but you didn't come here to hire a milkshake. What did you hire? And then as we put all of their answers together, it became clear that they all had the same job to do in the morning, and that is they had a long and boring drive to work. And they just needed something to do while they drove to keep the commute interesting. One hand had to be on the wheel, but somebody had given them another hand, and there wasn't anything in it. And they just needed something to do while they drove. They weren't hungry yet, but they knew they'd be hungry by 10 o'clock, so they also wanted something that would just pull down there and stay for their morning. Good question. What do I hire when I do this job? You know, I've never framed the question that way before, but last Friday I hired a banana to do the job. Take my word for it, never hire bananas. They're gone in 3 minutes, you're hungry by 7:30. If you promise not to tell my wife, I probably hire donuts twice a week, but they don't do it well either. They're gone fast, they crumb all over my clothes, they get my fingers gooey. Sometimes I hire bagels, but as you know, they're so dry and tasteless. Then I have to steer the car with my knees while I'm putting jam on them, and then if the phone rings, we got a crisis. I remember I hired a Snickers bar once, but I felt so guilty I've never hired Snickers again. Let me tell you, when I come here and hire this milkshake, it is so viscous that it easily takes me 20 minutes to suck it up that thin little straw. Who cares what the ingredients are? I don't. All I know is I'm full all morning and it fits right here in my cup holder. Well, it turns out that the milkshake does the job better than any of the competitors, which in the customers' minds are not Burger King milkshakes, but it's bananas, donuts, bagels, Snickers bars, coffee, and so on. But I hope you can see how, if you understand the job, how to improve the product becomes just obvious.
Great. Glad everyone could see that there. Make sure that's all.
The most helpful way we've thought of it so far.
Okay. Hopefully everyone is seeing the slides now.
The most helpful way we've
again, and now we're done. Okay. So agents, I think I like his thinking there of what is the job you're hiring something to do. And the way I think about agents today, if you and your team are wondering, like, how do we use AI? I think the best question you can ask your team is get on the whiteboard and say, well, what jobs do we want to get done? What are the very specific jobs that we want to accomplish? And those jobs can be really simple. A lot of advisors, one of the tools that has grown really quickly, it's added a ton of value to advisors, has been note takers. They're easy to implement. It does a very specific job. It comes to the meeting, it listens, it makes notes. You can maybe look at the transcript or things like that. But overall, there's a job you used to have to do, which was like, okay, in a client meeting, I have to take notes, and now you don't. Other ones that people are using a lot, we try to visit a lot of advisors in their office to learn these things, is email writing. A lot of advisors are going to ChatGPT as kind of a better spell check / idea thing. And they're going in and saying, hey, how do I tell this to the client without sounding mean? And they'll write it kind of rude, and they'll get an email back that sounds a lot nicer. So email writing, a very clear job that advisors need to do that, again, you can hire an agent to help you with. Some of that are newly launched that I found. For those who attended Future Proof or going to Expert Opinion, there's so many vendors now. There's a million out there, but there's new ones happening every day. But some like AI compliance. Can you jump in and can it do a mock audit? Can you ask it specific questions? Can you understand the job you need of compliance being managed? Can you hire an agent? Or paraplanning? Can it make a first version of a plan and then you can jump in and do the rest? Or is it one that's broadly adopted? Is it a tool like, hey, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot? All of those are agents that are ready and available for you to ask questions, to do research, to be kind of the best advisor you can. Other interesting ones, if you have a lot of research you're doing, Notebook LM was kind of built for college research and has become a very, very valuable tool. Or, hey, things like, hey, my inbox is unruly. Can I jump in and use something like an email manager? So that is some of the agents that are used today. If we look at agents of the future, which I will call them, it's fun to look at things. What are things advisors want or need to do that haven't been possible? They would take too much time, too much brain power, not help you focus on the things that matter, but be valuable. And these are some that we've seen from our customers and from advisors we've talked with. People want an agent that can look for abnormal spending or for if one of your clients is getting scammed or taken advantage of. I think that really matters. The next would be something like looking at a checking account. Like, hey, did someone get an increase in income we do not know about? Or can it fill out custodian paperwork for getting things funded? I've heard a lot of people spend too much time on Schwab paperwork. And so can we make that an easier, better process? And then something like an annual review. That is one of the most asked. We've asked hundreds of advisors, hey, if you got tens of thousands of more dollars, you could hire a new assistant. What would you do? And a lot of people say one of the most popular answers is, I want someone to schedule and handle all the annual reviews. I just want that taken care of. And so can an agent make that happen? It's worth thinking about. And I would encourage everyone here to think about, there's probably agents you know exist that are ready, and then there'll be agents that you don't know about that just aren't available to you. So, but think about what you want and start working with good teams to make those happen. When I look at AI and your business, I talked briefly about, hey, what did you have access to before? The markets, then knowledge, and now it's going to be great relationships. AI is going to be valuable for relationships. A lot of people wonder, is AI going to replace me? Are people going to only talk to an advisor? For some clients, that might be the case. For most, it's not. What you're going to want to use AI for is being better at relationships and catching the things that you don't. Like a lot of advisors, they'll go out there and they'll say, okay, what am I worried about? I say, well, I have 200 plus households I take care of, and there's probably 40 people I haven't met with that I can't get a hold of, or that I haven't seen, or that I'm forgetting about. That is something that, hey, can an agent go in and say, I've looked through your clients. These are the 10 people that it's been over 6 months since you've talked to them. Here's an email to reach out to invite them to get on a meeting. Or like one that we've seen happen, hey, an email in 2023 or a date of death in the CRM lets you know that you should send someone some flowers or a note. Like, you want to be on top of that. You have a lot going on. You can't have that all perfectly set up, but it's worth, if you had 5 clients, how would you treat them? If you had 1, what would you do for them? Those are the things that AI can really help an advisor with. Or, hey, you were in a meeting, they mentioned their son's going to start school. You should send an email to celebrate the milestone, something like that. It's really, really worth leaning into and using AI to be better at all those relationships. And I think it's worth looking at in your day-to-day, how much of your time is spent on relationship building. So for everyone here in the webinar, open a tab in your computer, get your phone out, check your calendar real quickly. We'll do a little poll. And the question is, how much time are you spending a week in front of clients in directly relationship building, and how much is not? And I think it'll be a good litmus test. So I'll put the poll up here and people can jump in. But how much of your time is really, really spent on core relationship maintaining or building, and how much is not? Feel free to answer that. We're going to show the answers on the next slide. And if the FA Mag team wants to let me know when they think it's a good time to hit that next button, you let me know. Again, for everybody, jump in with your answer of how much time you're doing on relationship building and how much is not. This will be a good litmus test for everybody here. I have my answers on where I think, depending on your job and how much time this should be, but it's very much worth looking at.
We'll give them 15 more seconds, Thomas.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to click next. We'll look at the answers now. We'll see where the crowd fell. Okay, nice. This is the typical histogram we see when we ask this question, whether this in person with people raising hands or just the polls we kind of keep internally. For the 0 to 15% group, I'm sorry that most of your time is not on relationships. If you don't want to be that way, if you really do want to be in management mode, then good job. But a lot of your best advice is going to happen when you're with the people. For anyone in those 2 middle buckets, I think you're doing it right. 31 to 45, I think really is the sweet spot for, if you have an established practice. And if you're new to the business, trying to do some more things, 60+%, hey, spend as much time as you can building relationships. It's essential. But overall, I think this is good data for all of you to look at. How much time are you spending on client relationships? And hopefully you can kind of get a sense for your peers. And I think a lot of you in that 16 to 30 probably want to be in that 31 to 45 if you could have your ideal day in front of you. And so it's worth looking at your calendar and doing an audit. I do it even myself personally of, okay, well, what if I spend time on all these things, when what moved the needle, what didn't, and where can I spend more time on the things that matter? Compliance is definitely worth digging into. I'll talk briefly about my experience with compliance. Our products has been approved at multiple broker dealers, large RIAs. We've gone through quite a lot of compliance processes and spent a lot of money to build a compliance system. And so hopefully the learnings from all of those reviews and processes can really dig into, hey, what do we see from technology companies about compliance that really matters? So first is the main job you all have as advisors with compliance is protecting the PII, personal identifiable information. This is things like birthdays, social security numbers, bank account numbers, all those things that someone could triangulate who a person is or do some malicious activity to them. And the key learning here that probably a lot of you know, but it's worth emphasizing, is that data belongs inside a CRM and not an LLM. So if you are putting in like, here's this client and all their data, like answer this question, you're giving information to a model. They may be, I think OpenAI, Perplexity, Gemini, you name it, are good actors trying to do a good job, but you are feeding it information. So just be totally aware that that's what you're doing in that moment. So there's a lot of things you can do to avoid that. We'll talk about those. Other things that I think are worth looking into, large banks are not letting people use the publicly available LLMs. I think they're good resources. We'll talk about how to use those, but just know that at large financial institutions, they're building their own models or doing their own things. Their own walls are up of how to do this right. There's new regulations from FINRA and the SEC. People have backwards hacked these where they can ask the right questions to get information people have put in. And the regulators, I would say, view the LLM as a high risk vendor, as a like more like an employee and not like a tool. And so I think that's the key for how to think about what you put into the model and what you don't for PII. So it's worth looking at. Let's talk about some of those new regulations are worth looking at. So SEC has 2 that have been announced, and FINRA has a bunch that are released as well. I think it's critical to look at those and understand, hey, what are the things that are out there? How are SEC and FINRA regulating your business and looking at it? So if you want to dig into any of these, you can feel free to send me an email. They're a long read, but they're worth looking at. So make sure you handle that process well. The next will be, is it ready for the LLM? I call this the bulletin board test. But for everyone here, I would just say, if you're training your team, let's say you leave this webinar, you have some insights on AI, the best thing you can do is if you go to the team and you say, hey, just so everyone knows, if we're not willing to put it on the wall for anyone to see, we shouldn't be putting it in right into ChatGPT or in any model. And these are things like, I could totally see you having an example tax return you want to show a client of how you optimize things, but you would obviously not keep their social security in there, their full name, their address, a passport number. That would be gone. You would redact it. You would cross it out. You would delete it from the digital, the PDF or the form. And then you would show that to someone. You'd be fine putting that up. Or here's an account statement from someone, right? You could show, this is how we like to diversify or whatever it is, but you wouldn't have their names on it. And so I would just, the quick training there is, if you're not willing to put it all in, if you wouldn't put it on the wall, you probably shouldn't put it in the model. Obviously there's certain things like, if you're using Outlook and you have, Copilot built in, like that's a walled world with your Outlook, but don't paste that information into another place. So anyway, I think that's a good training and rule of thumb for everyone on how to think about if it's ready for a model. And usually this is where a lot of questions come. So we will for sure dig into compliance questions through this process. So the next question is really, how should a tech company, anyone you're hiring to do a job in terms of that analogy, treat PII if they deal with AI? How should they put it in a model? And there's 2 phrases you should know if you're working with vendors, you're asking them. You should ask, how are they redacting and are they tokenizing? And I'll briefly talk about both those. Redaction is simply removing things from the data altogether. So if I redacted your first name, your name is just not in there. It's just going to be blank. Maybe it's just a bunch of black squares. Maybe it's just deleted, but redaction is removing data. And then tokenization is replacing things with other data. This is a very effective, it takes good engineering teams a good amount of time to figure this out, but they can. Everything you put in has essentially a dummy answer you give the model and a real answer that you have retained. So if my phone number is 707-863, instead what I send to the model is 222-2222. And I know when I come get an answer back from the model that's 22222, I put in my real phone number for you to see the real answer. So that's kind of the good pop quiz there, but you should be asking the technology firms you work with, hey, when you're sending stuff to the model, are you redacting it? Are you tokenizing? Are you ever sending PII? And they should have good answers for you on what they're doing in that process. So that's a good bit on how tech companies should be handling the data problem. I'll jump in now after these compliance sections to some AI use cases. And I do see some questions. I will get to these. I think these are great great questions that I'm seeing. I'm excited to jump in on them. For AI use cases, these are the 10, the title of the webinar, 10 ways to save 10 hours. This is my favorite part. We're going to dive into a lot of actionable things for you to look at. But so when people talk about adding an AI agent, I think it's worth identifying what are those agents and how are they broken down. So the first I would say is some advisors, it's a rare group, love to build their own. This is more often going to happen from a third party if you want really specific outcomes. But if you love API documents and you love Zapier and you love ChatGPT and you're using, all the latest and greatest tech, you might be one of the advisors who wants to do homegrown agents. If you are, you should talk to our team I want to learn from you and see what you're building. But that's like how a small group of people want to go that route, or they'll hire a third-party firm to help them build homegrown agents. Those are great outcomes if you have really specific things you want, very particular ways to do it, particular ways to manage the data. The next are what we call point solutions. You have a specific problem and there's a specific vendor out there to solve it. That would be a point solution. This is a really effective way if you're not trying to change a lot of processes. You have some compliance risk with larger switches. A great example here are a lot of the AI note takers. They came in, they solved a very real problem of taking notes. Like you could do that, you could do some meeting prep, you could come in. That solved a problem. It didn't change a lot of your compliance needs. It didn't change a lot of things, but your job was slightly better off and you have to save a ton of time. That's how point solutions. And then we talk about embedded solutions. So if you have systems you're already using, like a good example, if you custody with Altruist, they added Hazel, the note taker. Or if you're using, a CRM and they add AI functionality, AI embedded deep inside the workflows you're already using, that would be what we call an embedded solution. And so for every business, these all have their place and they fit in different spots, but it's worth thinking about how agents work and where you want them to plug in. So we'll dive into our first agent. So this is an agent that saves a lot of people a lot of time. This would be a client research agent. So you should be able to come into system of record and ask really specific questions about a client, whether that's what did we talk about in our last meeting, or summarize all the work we've done for this person and it can pull out the tasks up, or what have we talked about in our last few emails. I'm going to meet this person today. What should we talk about? Those are great research questions you should be able to ask your system of record. This is a powerful feature that a lot of people like to use. But overall, I think a lot of advisors have experienced that moment of, what did we say to this person? Or what did we tell them we were going to do? Or it's been too long. Let's dive in and solve that problem. So that is a client research agent, powerful tool for an advisor. Next is data enrichment. This is an exciting one. There are a lot of, this one exists in quite a few add-on vendors. A lot of people are starting to add it. There's a company called Clay for technology companies that does a really good job of this. Data enrichment, I would call it, is an agent that looks at, hey, whatever client data you have, can it go and find additional data out there? There's so many public data sources now that have things like, hey, who has inherited money? Who has recently sold a house? Who has refinanced a mortgage? A lot of those are public records that are out there, and people now with AI can scrape those records, find the answers, and append their data. Things like LinkedIn as well. So for every client in your system, if you're going to meet with them that week, you could have an agent go and enrich the data and look, did they buy any houses that they haven't told us about? Have they had any job changes? Have they made any changes in their life? Great data to have. And then for prospects, it's incredibly valuable as well. Some data enrichment there is something like, hey, who has gotten a new job in this city? Or I had their information, but I didn't have a phone number. Here's a likely phone number. And the strategy that's used here is called data waterfalls. Essentially, you look at one publicly data source, you append what you can, you look at another. If you get the same answer, you give it a thumbs up, like, hey, we've validated this. You get a different answer, you show the difference. So it's a really effective way. Now that there's so many data sources and AI is really good at jobs like this, you can enrich data on your clients. Next is meeting prep. This is a very valuable one, especially for the busy advisor who's in meetings all day. You want to walk in there. Let's say you've grown from a team meeting, you go to another thing. You're like, okay, we've got a lot to figure out here. Coming to a meeting prepped and ready is very valuable. If we look at this AI generated meeting prep here, we can click into some of these specific things. So, it's worth saying there's a lot of people building different agents, and agents are things we believe advisors should customize. You're not locked into one way to do it. You should be able to say, hey, always for my meeting prep, start with quick context, and then let me know. Maybe you see this and you think, I don't like last touch point being near the top, I want it at the bottom. You could tell your agent, okay, I want the last touch point to be near the bottom. But this is a great way to get a lot of context, see your last touch points. If we look here, it's saying, okay, what's in the balances we have? Who are the members of the household? Maybe that's a good reminder. Oh yeah, their daughter Lily just turned 4. Let me ask them about how Lily's doing, because they're here during the working day. So Lily must be at school, or Lily's going to come and you can have food ready, a little treat or something. Look at last touch point. Okay, it's been 90 days. Got it. They're an A-tier client. We're on schedule. This is good. Maybe that says 360. I think, oh my goodness, we should have met earlier. I can ask them what's been so busy. Personal and life events. Okay, starting preschool. How's that going? We'll talk about 529s. You did the home renovation. Like, what are we thinking there? And you didn't go on vacation. You've been working too hard. Like, let's figure out a way to budget that and make it happen. Items to clarify, hey, what are we going to spend on this house? And then conversation starters. Maybe you're like, hey, I'm good at that. I don't want that in my agent. Great. Tell it not to be there. But how's preschool going? How's the neighborhood? Questions like that. So meeting prep, very valuable agent, worth looking into. Note takers, hopefully everyone in here has at least seen or understand the power of note takers. We think it's been a huge innovation in wealth tech and been incredibly valuable. You shouldn't have to manually take notes anymore. AI is really good at listening, writing it all down, and summarizing it for you. And so using a note taker, the way these work, they can join Zoom or Teams meetings. They can jump in on maybe a phone call, in person, you name it. And it should leave that with either action items, overview of what you talked about, things you need to do. And a lot of those currently for people send the tasks to the CRM. In our case, there's ones that are embedded inside your CRM. But overall, the note taker is a very, very powerful agent that saves advisors a lot of time and helps with things like compliance, getting things done, being timely. Nudges, we call these nudges. Some people will call them reminders. These are the things that you want to be doing, but you don't always have time for. I would call that a nudge. If it's something you have to do, I would make that more of a workflow. But a nudge is something that helps you stay right on track of the things that matter. So if you set in your CRM, let's say, hey, I want to meet with A-tier clients every 3 months, and someone is an A-tier client and it's 2.5 months, you should get a nudge if they're not scheduled that says, hey, you want to be meeting every 3 months. You should start reaching out to get some time with this person. Or in the case of John here, hey, it's been over 9 months, let's schedule a meeting. In the other example here on the right, hey, Max's kid is starting school today. Okay, like we learned that from a meeting, a note, an email they sent, whatever it is. You didn't make a task in your CRM. You always have other things going on, but that's a good reminder to send. So click congratulate them. It pre-fills the information. You can click send, and you're that much more on top of it. When I talk about relationships really mattering for advisors, I think this is a critical piece of it, is these proactive nudges that help you stay on top of the things that may be missing. Some really popular nudges we've seen are birthdays. Some people have automation there, but a nudge is great because it would look at, well, what have you talked about in your past emails and texts? And what did you talk about in meetings? And it can formulate a really good, happy birthday. Thanks for making the best bread or whatever it is, that we've had advisors show us their birthday nudges, and they've been awesome. But it's a powerful way to stay that much more ahead of the trends. Task completion, a very, very valuable agent that people have loved. If you have a task in your CRM, you should have an agent that can complete a large portion of that task for you. In our first product, the marketing product, had over 3 million emails sent from it, and over 1 million tasks completed. And we looked at those tasks and we saw, okay, well, what do the tasks usually need to be done? And 70% just required an email to be sent. And that made it clear to our team, okay, well, we should have an agent that just can write at least a version of this email. And so instead of coming to the office with 10 things you need to do, it's really helpful to come in and say, there's 10 to do, but 6 of these have an email pre-drafted. I can review it. I can click send. The example here is someone in the CRM put, you need to follow up with Jim today. And you think, okay, I need to do it. If you start from a blank slate, you're just going to spend a lot of time. What do I want to ask? How do I get this email done? Spending time writing it. If it's written for you, you're going to make a couple edits. You can press send, and that agent can get better and better at accomplishing those jobs. if we dig into annual review, I think it's an agent worth looking at. This is one of the most popular agents people are requesting. How annual review would work is you would be able to set on client tier level, how often do you want to meet? You could look at the process you have in front of you and say, great, when did we last meet? How often do we want to meet? And start setting natural annual review dates. A lot of that there is just simple automation. That's not even AI agent, but the AI comes in and can hopefully make those emails much better, your outreach much better, and help you stay on top of it as the advisor. The goal here, I've met with too many advisors who have that kind of pit in their stomach, like there's someone I haven't met with that I should. I don't even know who it is. An annual review agent really keeps things on top of that. So it's a really good process to look through what's available, who do I need to be meeting with, and some simple views there to make that even better. But annual review, we know that there's a regulatory component there. There's a process of just getting that job done and making sure that you're answering all the critical questions you need to for your clients. So an agent to help you stay on top of that has become very, very valuable. Document research, I think, is a great question worth digging into. For those who haven't used a tool like Notebook LM, I really encourage you to, it's a Google Gemini product. You can upload a complex estate plan or a crazy tax return, obviously redacted or tokenized. That's a big thing to do. And then you can get really good insights out of it. Like, okay, where exactly is this? What are the pieces of this estate, and who are we sending this money to? And what happens when this person passes? And what are the goals of it? You can get very, very interesting feedback back from those things. And I would say anytime you're dealing with 20, 30, 40 plus pages, using a document research agent is an awesome, awesome tool. The basics there, I would say, are obviously redact and tokenize. And then in a tool like Gemini, it's amazing. You can upload that large document and it has tools like, okay, do you want to make a podcast about this? And so you could have a client estate plan, put it in there, and have a podcast on your way to work that's going to be 15 minutes talking about the nuances of there. You're going to learn in your format. It can make a video. It can do a bunch of cool things. But that's a product that's out there, ready to be used, powerful to advisors. And yeah, very important. Compliance audits. This is an agent that is on our roadmap that a lot of people have been requesting that I think is very, very valuable. Can your CRM scan for the potential issues that your firm is seeing and help you get ahead of them? Like, hey, for the Hanks family, we're missing the IPS and we haven't got a new risk tolerance in quite a while, even though we've talked about these things. That's, I think, a very, very powerful agent. Another one would be like outdated client information. Someone mentioned in a meeting that the beneficiaries are gone or this, that, the other. Boom, you can fix that. Or a meeting gap. You haven't met with this person in a long time. We look at compliance in two ways. There's one, could you run an agent that essentially does a mock SEC audit? It's going to pull, here's these 20 people, get this information, tell me the answers, and it would do it and then expose things that are wrong. And then one that's just in the background constantly saying, hey, this call recording from your team was a little promissory. Like, let's review that, talk to that advisor about not just saying the market goes up 10% a year. That, you can say, here's a historical trend line, but not that this is a guarantee. And so a compliance agent is one that's really, really, people are very excited about. And I think an agent that could help a lot of advisors sleep a little better at night, knowing the SEC could come at any minute. Prospecting is a very powerful agent. A lot of advisors, I feel like advisors are in two camps. Either trying to manage their book and it's busy, or they're really trying to grow and they want to add new clients. And so for anyone in that second bucket, prospecting is a cool agent. This would find people in your area, in your city, through a bunch of those data sources. When we talked about data enrichment, this is a group who would find, you get the data from sources like that. So an example is you could have a prospect agent that runs and you say, hey, every week, I want to know 10 people in my city who switch jobs. Great. That's now a list of people. You can look at the 10 people who switched. Maybe you enroll them in an automated sequence, but you have that agent go find you those people. Another one would be from those third-party data sources, like who of my client, who of my leads has recently purchased a home, or, hey, you had some clients, 2 inherited money or 1 sold a house, like you need to talk to them. And so hopefully that's creating opportunities for you to help your clients more and manage more assets. But that's a high level of a prospecting agent. If I jump into any other questions, I want to double click on a few things in here. Let me go back. In compliance, that was where the most questions came up. So I'll try to get a little ahead of that before we jump to Q&A. It's a slow click button. I would just say on here, I know there were some questions that came up, and I'll double click on these very specifically, but the latest on compliance with LLMs is they're just much more treated like an employee that you need to manage rather than a vendor. A vendor used to maybe have a data leak, or they would just do something wrong, and that was something you'd usually see or you'd hear about from them and you'd fix. An LLM, as it's a little more autonomous, it's just kind of writing and doing things. It's much more about managing. A good example here is if you were making marketing material, let's say you're inviting your clients to a fall tailgate party to have a client appreciation event. If you have an AI thing make a flyer, you've got to review the contents of the flyer, because they could say something really dumb about, maybe it heard financial advisor and then it says 20% returns, and now you're printing a lousy PDF that promises stuff. Like, you set up yourself for a problem. You need to review it. Just like if you had a junior advisor or anyone else doing that kind of work, you definitely need to spend the time reviewing it. And so I would just say it's much more treat it a lot more like an employee, especially when it creates outputs for you, rather than a software vendor. You can't be like, oh, like I pressed the wrong button in Canva. Like, no, you like told someone to make something, they made a bad thing. So that's worth digging into. The top point here from SEC is very interesting. It requires advisors and broker dealers to just test and neutralize the LM features that could favor the firm over the client. So if you have been chatting with your ChatGPT all day about how to make more money, how to do this, that, and the other, and then suddenly all the recommendations it has for you are to sell really bad annuities with a high commission, like, you're doing the wrong thing. You've trained your agent to do a poor job. And so you need to be aware that you do not want that conflict of interest that you're training your team about, that you're running yourself. I think it's worth digging into that. Like, you need to test for that conflict of interest. The next tier is just all of your vendors you work with understand, like, hey, if there's a breach or anything, how soon will you notify me? And then if it's source PI, you have more regulation. But again, if you work with any vendors, it's worth knowing, how do you redact? How do you tokenize? How fast are you at a turnaround of notifying me if something goes wrong? The companies you work with should be like very happy to answer those questions. And if they're not, it's much more of a red flag. So just be ready to answer those things. But we've seen this as we've gone through various approvals with a lot of groups. You understand what the good companies need to be doing, and it's worth doing. FINRA, this is the fourth bullet point here, just talks about the emerging risk of these. And theirs is less clear, but essentially on the lines of do a little more diligence, take a little bit more, train your staff on how to manage these things. If you haven't, as a team, if you have a team, done some kind of AI training, can be even led by any of you as the owners or a proactive advisor there, just saying, hey, should I put this in the model? Yes or no? And like, you'll be surprised the things that people might have been putting in there, but really train your team on those type of things. And then just know that on the bottom there, as the people, FINRA and SEC know that the work world is changing, LLMs are changing. There's a lot more going on. They've kind of put an announcement that says, we know a lot's happening. You can still run your business, but just be aware you should be totally on top of these things. That's a little bit more on compliance. And then again, the bulletin board rule is pretty simple, but would you put it up on the wall? Would you ask those kind of questions, display that to another client that's not their own? Like, you know the answer to that very easily. Take that with you as you apply it to the products you use. And then just again, redact. Redact means just remove the data. So if you don't want anything to go in there, just remove it. And then if you want to kind of have interactive pieces you can talk with, tokenizing is very effective. But thank you everyone for attending this. I think we'll be jumping to the Q&A very soon. Anything else from me, Tracy?
No, that's it. Great job. Thank you for sharing all your insights.
Thank you. I'll get over. Tracy, would it be best for me to triage questions here, or what's the...
Oh, sure. Whatever you prefer. I can ask them if you if you
Okay,
prefer.
I'll look through. Let me just get my module up here. Okay. Thanks everyone for jumping in these. Okay. I'll do some of these. Someone asked that early on. We've all seen the movies where AI evolves and takes the humans out of the world. Is this really possible? The people who are really good at AI are the most nervous about that. I think they think about it in the right way. I think it's humans are really good at solving the most important problems. So if that got dire, we could figure it out. But I would say it's just going to help you for a long time. You should just learn how to use it and how to help you. It's a fun question. Okay. People had asked about, yeah, this is great. Okay, so some people say, I see a comparison on the Slant website to Wealthbox and Redtail. Does your note-taker portion compare to Jump AI or Vega, for example? Yeah. Our product is very much, we are a CRM with a lot of AI baked in. So we should probably have a comparison on the note takers as well. But we would see ourselves as a CRM, and that's what we compare to those, but with note taker stuff built in. Good question. Do you have a preferred company for book or article summaries like Assist Advisor and their clients and sorting through the tons of through all this stuff? Yeah, there's a great question. There is so much to learn right now. I think the business has never changed faster. And so if I was trying to keep up, I really do think Michael Kitces and Nerd's Eye View is a great resource to try to be very on top of the latest and greatest in kind of wealth tech. And then on AI specifically, I would try to keep a pulse a little bit up to date. A lot of you are watching CNBC. There's a good amount of AI chatter on there. But knowing what the really good, what is Microsoft saying they're building? What is OpenAI talking about building? It's really good for you to see those. And then like they do really impressive launches and keynotes, and like Perplexity recently announced their agent for like the investment banking and the banker side of business. And it has a lot of advisor applications. And so if I was going to if I had to give one answer, I'd say read Nerd's Eye View, read Kitces. If I was going to give you more than that, I would say the companies who you think are doing a good job with AI, it's great to follow along their journey and know what they're pushing out, what they're thinking about. But it's a great question. And then I know there's a recently launched like Advisor AI podcast that I've listened to a few episodes of. It's pretty good. And so keep finding those places. That this is a fun time because people there have been, you think about the internet, there was a bubble there, but it also became the internet. It was a really important thing. There's never been a time where people have been as bullish on technology and wanting to learn as much at one time. And so it's pretty exciting for us to see those answers come. Yeah, okay, so a question here from David says, it seems to me that the critical element here is being virtually 100% diligent in posting all client contact, live, voicemail, or email in order for AI to analyze or help. True. David, you are right. And the beauty of 2025, I think, if you think about CRMs of the past, it was all up to the advisor to input data. That was the critical job they had in front of them was, I got to put the task in there. I got to connect the email. I need to write this down. 2025, a lot of those tools can be very well connected. Recall makes it very easy for companies to build note takers. So note takers should funnel into the data you want it to. Connecting to email is really, like if you're, you may still be on the exchange and, a lot of companies can figure out how to connect to exchange, but some can't. But your email should be automatically coming in. You should be integrating with your VoIP phone, and that data should be coming in. You should be going to meetings, and the note taker should be there. And suddenly you have every data source where data could come in from, and unless they sent you a pigeon or it was really in mail, then you got to punch something in yourself manually. But overall, you have a really good opportunity to say, well, that came from a phone call, it's automatically added. That came from an email, that's automatically added. This was from a meeting, that's automatically added. So the burden is decreasing on the advisor to put it in themselves, and the burden is going up on the technology companies to get that data in and then use it valuably. So you are right on 100% on the data is needed to do these cool recommendations and these awesome nudges and these AI agents. Companies of the future, we think like ourselves included, are the companies who are figuring that out and saying, okay, you shouldn't have to manually punch all this in. You should be adding it, it should be in there and you should be getting value from it. So I think it's a great question. Someone asked, what do you think of Claude AI from Anthropic? Claude's an amazing tool. It's exceptional for developers, especially. overall, I think Anthropic there's a reason they've raised so much money and are valued so much and have so much revenue. They add a lot of value to the world. And so it's worth, I think, for everyone here, do you have, like, when you weigh using a model or using a tool, try multiple of them. Like, maybe you've used ChatGPT the whole time. It's worth trying Grok or Gemini or Anthropic and asking the same questions and seeing how the answers are different and seeing the features they have. Like, some of those are better at tougher research. You know, if you're trying to, some client says, okay, you know, I want to put 100% of my money in triple levered QQQ. Like, okay, like, you may want to do some research to get ready for that and be like, hey, you guys all know how to answer that question. But I think it's worth, like, trying different models to get different answers. I think Claude and Anthropic are great companies and doing a very, very good job. Another person asked, do you have an annual review of scheduling agent in Slant? Yes, that is a product we currently have. Of all those I showed, if it didn't say like in development, or I can look at, roadmap, and then it's currently live. So we have an agent that can schedule your annual reviews. We'll draft the emails, get them on your calendar. It's a very powerful agent. We spent a long time. We spent pretty much this whole year, February through now, I was in intensive research mode, just meeting with advisors to try to understand what is it they really want done. And there was a pretty resounding answer from advisors that one of those was, I do not want to think about reviews. I just want to do them. And so we want to get that agent wants to get reviews on your calendar, help the advisor stay on top of it so you can get those things done. And great question, David. Which of these agents does Slant provide? I'll just go through quickly here. There's a lot. Okay, client research. That agent is totally live and functional. You can ask questions about clients and get great answers. Data enrichment is in beta. We have it. It's not publicly available yet, but we are appending data when advisors want that. Meeting prep is live. Every meeting you have on your calendar has a prep doc ready for the advisor to use. The note taker is live. It will join your meetings. It can join in-person calls. Nudges is live. It recommends actions you should take that are not necessary tasks. Task completion is live. If you have a task and it thinks an email can solve it, it will write it for you so you can do it. And the thesis of ours is they call it last mile delivery. We're never going to just, we or the agent or whoever you want to call it is not going to automatically send this for you. It's going to get it to the finish line. So you can click one button or make an edit and review it. And review scheduling is live. Document research is not live in the product yet, but it's getting close. We have like research from notes, and compliance is not live yet, and prospecting is not live yet, but those are close. Great question. Russ asks, note-taking versus transcribing versus summary, is one better than the other? This is a great question. There's a lot of opinions out there on this. It's been interesting to see a lot of the broker dealers have taken the choice to, they keep the transcription for some amount of time, they make the note, and then they delete the transcription. That's how they want it to run. I think that era will stop. I think SEC will come in and say, you don't delete emails, you shouldn't delete transcripts. But right now, that's the kind of a default behavior for some of the large broker dealers. I think the best version is being a good advisor, not being afraid of your transcript, and keeping the video, the transcript, and the notes. Then you have the most accurate data, and you can go in and say, what exactly did we talk about, and go to that portion of the meeting and watch it. Storage is getting cheaper and cheaper, so you can store a lot of videos and get those answers. But that's my opinion would be, have note-taking, have transcription, have summary, keep it all, and then do actions from that. I think that's the best version. But every legal team and compliance team is different. I know some who say they never want a transcript or the recording. They just want, like, can it make a summary and be done? Like, this is as if I hired someone to take notes. I want the notes. That's it. And so that, like we talked about before, the job to be done, that Clayton Christensen segment, I think is worth thinking about for everyone here. What's the next job you really want to get done and accomplish? Hopefully you can think about how AI can do it and answer questions like that. Great questions from everyone. That was awesome. Tracy, anything else we should touch on?
I think that is it. And what an incredible product you have developed for financial advisors and other financial services. On behalf of all of us at Financial Advisor Magazine, we'd like to thank you, Thomas Clausen and Slant, for your time and insights today, as well as all of you attendees for joining us. To learn more about Slant, please visit slant.app. That's slant.app. As a reminder, this webcast will be made available on demand in the coming days. To attend any of our upcoming webcasts, please visit our website at fa-mag.com/webcasts. Please note CE credits are only available for live webcast attendees who report via our Continuing Education Center for up to 10 days following this live event. For more information, including frequently asked questions, head on over to our CE Center on the fa-mag.com homepage. Thank you, everyone, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.